In this example, we have two denominators that we need to get rid of. We need to get rid of a divide by 2 and a divide by 3. So what I want to do is I want to multiply the whole equation by a factor of 2 and a factor of 3. So I'm just going to highlight these multipliers. We're going to multiply both sides. But when we multiply this out, we end up with 3x. The divide 2 and the times by 2 cancel out. And so we're left with it times by 3. So this times 3 is what's left over when the times by 2 and divide by 2 cancel out. Here we're going to have 1 in the numerator. The times 3 divide 3 cancel out. So we're going to end up with a times by 2. So this times by 2 is what's left over after divide by 3 times by 3 cancel out. And then for negative 5, nothing cancels out. There's no divide here. So we're going to multiply by 2 and by 3. So this becomes 9x plus 2 is equal to negative 30. When I subtract 2 from both sides, I end up with 9x is equal to negative 32. Dividing both sides by 9, we get the final answer of x is equal to negative 32 over 9. In E, we have to be a little bit careful because we have, in E, we have this brackets in brackets. So the problem with this is that we have lots of times embedded in here. So if I tried getting rid of the divide by 3 and divide by 2, multiplying like this, it can be done, but it's a bit complicated because we have to be careful of this times here. If we distribute, we can distribute to there, that's okay. But if we distribute to here and then into the brackets here, there's a big problem because there's a times in here and a times in here. And we cannot distribute multiplication across multiplication. So we cannot distribute this 3 times 2 across that times. Okay, we can distribute across plus and minus. We cannot distribute across times. So this is a bit of a problem. We can get around this, and in the next example I'll show you how we can do this where we can distribute this properly. But a better solution to this would be we can get rid of the brackets first and then get rid of the divide. So that's going to be much easier. Brackets first, then the divide. So when I get rid of the brackets, I'm going to get rid of the inside brackets. So this times 1 times 2 times x, that all ends up on top as 2x. And on the bottom is divided by 3. So I have all my times on top, my divide on bottom. Here this becomes minus, and then just becomes 1/3 minus 1. Okay, plus x over 2 is equal to 9. When I distribute this, I have to be careful of that negative. I have to make sure I distribute that negative to both terms. So I end up with minus. Instead of 1/2 x, I'm just going to put the times x on top. Here I get negative of minus positive 1, which gives me minus 1. Okay, so I've gotten rid of the inside brackets on the left side. I'm going to continue distributing this. When I distribute, all the times goes on top. I can distribute across this subtraction here and here. So that's okay to distribute across plus and minus. I cannot distribute across times though. So we end up with 8x over 3. Negative is positive times 4 divide by 3. I'm going to make sure I don't times the top and the bottom of that fraction because again, we cannot distribute across times or divide. So we cannot multiply into the numerator and denominator. our rule of times on top, divide on bottom also confirms this, that -4 multiplier can only go in the numerator. So the last part is negative. We're subtracting a negative, so we are going to end up adding. 4 times 1 is 4. Plus x over 2 is equal to 9. Well, we have some like terms, so we should try to combine like terms whenever we can. So I have those like terms. That's positive 9 minus 1. That's going to give us 8, and then minus x over 2. Okay, so at this point now, I distributed all the brackets. Now I don't have to worry about this multiplication across, or distributing across multiplication. All the terms are separated by plus. So then I can now take this and get rid of the denominator. So get rid of brackets first, then the denominator makes it much easier. So I'm going to multiply by 3 and multiply by 2. When I multiply that out, some things cancel. So my 8x here, the times 3 and divide 3 cancel out. So I'm going to be left with a multiply by 2. Plus, the times 3 divide 3 cancel out again. So I'm going to be left with, again, a multiply by 2. The plus 4, nothing cancels out. So I end up with 4. And since nothing cancels, I'm going to multiply by both 2 and 3. The times 2 cancel, so I left with x. Times 2 divide 2 cancel, so there's still a times by 3 that's left over here. Okay, so equals 8. Nothing cancels, so it's times 3 times 2 minus the times 2 divide 2 cancel, so I've left with a times 3 factor here. So times 3. Okay, so we're just keeping track of the times and divide, and whenever we have a times by 3 and divide by 3, we can cancel out. We need to make sure that the remaining factor of times 2 remains. So at this point, I'm going to multiply this all out. So negative 16x plus 8 plus 24. I'm going to combine like terms when possible. So plus 3x. This ends up being 8 times 3 times 2. That's going to be 48 minus 3x. So combining like terms, I end up with negative 13x plus 32, and that's equal to 48 minus 3x. Okay, so I can put all the x's on the right hand side by getting rid of the minus 13x, by adding 13x to both sides. I'm going to get rid of the 48 on this side by subtracting by 48 on both sides. These terms cancel, so I'm left with 32 minus 48, that's negative 16. Negative 3 plus 13x gives us 10x. We can divide both sides by 10. So my final answer works out to be negative 16 over 10, simplifies to negative 8 over 5. And if we want to express that as a decimal, we can express that as negative 1.6.